Good Morning PD on Live 95, the PD's gathering place. Now, back to the show.
Welcome to Good Morning PD Live 95. McCall Farms is our sponsor, 843-661-0937. Our number, we're not dealing with the direct hit of a hurricane, but we are dealing with the consequences eventually sometime tomorrow of what is now a Category 4, very threatening hurricane in the Florida Panhandle. We're joined this morning by former Deputy Assistant to President George W. Bush. Brad Blakeman is with us this morning. Brad, good morning, and thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, our former governor, Nikki Haley, who has moved on to serve in the Trump administration as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. Yesterday, in fairly abrupt fashion, announced her resignation. I got to believe you know more about the inside skinny than we do in Florence, South Carolina. What is the scuttlebutt, and what do people suspect was the reasoning that Nikki Haley decided to announce her resignation by the end of this calendar year?
Well, anytime a senior-level official leaves, people try and read the tea leaves. But I think if you look at the tea leaves, it's perfectly normal. The average tenure of somebody in her position is about 18 to 24 months. She's in that sweet spot. You always leave when you're on top. Service to the president is an opportunity, not a career. You're there for a fixed period of time. And you serve at the pleasure of the president, the direction of the president. And if you can control your own destiny, that's the gold standard in politics. So I think if you take a look back, it's not unexpected that she would do that. The timing is always suspect, but I don't see anything other than the fact that she needs now to return home, and it's hard running two households, and she needs to concentrate on herself and her family and get herself financially situated where she could rejoin the public sector if that's her calling.
Brad, when someone begins speculating, obviously that's conjecture, that's speculation, but the reality is Donald Trump is a very unique political animal. Nikki Haley served as governor when I served as lieutenant governor of South Carolina, and politics operates on a fairly normal basis. How do you believe Governor Haley, or our former Governor Haley, dealt with the uniqueness of Donald Trump as the American president?
Look, you cannot serve a president well unless you're in tune with his policies and comfortable in serving in his direction. Haley, people were worried she wasn't a diplomat. Yeah, she's a governor, but does that translate well? It translated beautifully. She was the president and our country's greatest advocate at the UN. She put the hammer down when it was necessary, but could be diplomatic when the calling was needed. She was central casting for that job, and I think that President Trump would be wise to find somebody in her mold to carry on her work. It was a great relationship she had with the president, and I think that people were surprised by how well she did. And there's no doubt that I believe there's a calling for her to continue to serve, but I think first she needs to tend to her family.
There seems to be a warming up in Washington. Politics operates a certain way and has for a long, long time. And Trump comes along and kind of disrupts in a very unconventional way the way he does his business and the way they run the White House. But it does appear to me that obviously the American public have embraced some of Trumpism, but it does appear to me that Washington is not beginning to embrace, but beginning to try to understand, that this is a very different president, and maybe the public have an appetite for a different sort of presidency. Do you think the people that serve at the pleasure of this president are beginning to accept some of these realities as out of the norm, but what the American public are looking for?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at this president, he's under-promised and over-delivered. He's a bottom-line guy. He's more transactional than ideological. I think that's what's stuck in a lot of Republicans' craw. But the fact of the matter is this guy is delivering. He's over-delivering. In the campaign, he said, our GDP would grow at 3%. Well, we're at 4%. He said unemployment would be at 5%. Well, we're just below 4%, full employment in this country. He said he'd cut regulation. He's given every bureaucracy the charge to cut regulation, and they're doing it. He said he'd do tax cuts. We've had one of the largest tax cuts in our history. So this guy is hitting on all cylinders, and he's empowering people. He's empowering agencies. He's empowering Congress. And he's saying, bring to me a bill. And if it meets the criteria of what we ran on in our platform, I'll sign it. And you couldn't ask for more than that. So I think when they see the deliverables, when they see his results, you can't argue with success.
Brad, as it relates to Governor Haley resigning that post, is there any speculation of who the replacement may be? I read an article this morning or a news report from the Wall Street Journal. Have you heard anything about who potentially replaces Governor Haley or Ambassador Haley in 2019?
I have not. And as close to the vest as the president had her departure is as close to the vest as he's handling her successor. I think if anybody tells you that they know, they don't know, and President Trump always jokes that he loves hearing pundits and reading in the paper names that are never on his list. So I think we have to hold our fire, but we won't have to wait too long because the president said he'll do it within the next 2 weeks.
Brett, thank you for your time. Interesting information this morning. Have a great day.
My pleasure.